Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Stories Worth Telling. Today we are live with Dr. Michael Schuneman, chiropractor from Life Symmetry Chiropractic. Thank you so much for being here today, Dr. Harris.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is one of the ones I think that I know I myself have been waiting for, but you do a lot of work with friends and family of mine, and you always just have so much great insight in various different formats. We'll definitely talk and touch base on those things today. And so I just kind of like to dive right in, just because of limited time and whatnot. But so what made you decide to go into the chiropractic world and choose to pursue the path that you did?
Right. It's actually kind of an interesting story. I didn't grow up with chiropractic, and I guess I kind of knew about chiropractic at least a little bit, but wasn't really familiar. It wasn't actually until I was a young adult, 20, somewhere around there. I was a missionary at the time, and going around talking to all sorts of different people. I met a couple of different chiropractors, and that's kind of where I was first really introduced to kind of the philosophy behind chiropractic. And it made so much sense that, the drug, the Band-Aid, the whatever it is, isn't what actually does the healing. It's the body that does the healing. And anything else is either kind of helping the healing process or not. And the chiropractor that was kind of explaining it was kind of the idea of, well, everything that is, your body controls is controlled by the nervous system, right? The brain and the nerves going out. And he says, if things aren't lined up in the spine, it's going to cause problems basically with kind of your nervous system, and then your body won't function as well as it can. A chiropractor's job is basically to find those areas, help correct it, and then let the body do what it was designed to do. And so when I heard that, that just made so much sense. It kind of just rang true to me that that was in the back of my mind when I got back from my mission. I really started looking into it more and more, and kind of being exposed to it, realized that, there were more options for people than often what I guess the medical model would give. There were things that I saw from different people, talking to different people, that, quote unquote, were incurable getting better, when the body gets healthier, stronger, whatever you want to call it. And that really kind of, the more I looked into it, it was like, this is something that I want to do. I want to help people in that way. So
Love it. That's awesome. And it's funny because sometimes we think that we know our path, and some people very much have a very straight line, but a lot of us maybe don't know, and then all of a sudden we just kind of weave in and out until we get there. So it's nice to know that that I'm not the only one who maybe didn't know what I was going to get myself into. But it is incredible to know that where it came from. Josh Deck, thank you so much for saying hello. Guys, if you are watching live, we just ask that you type in #live to let us know that you are here. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them up and things like that. And then, we'll get those questions addressed to you live. And of course, if you would like to connect with Dr. Schuneman, you can just type in #life. I think that are you okay with that?
Yeah, that'll be a little bit easier than
Life Symmetry. Yeah. #life. If you would like to connect with Dr. Schuneman, and then he will follow up within the next day or so to just kind of touch base with you. And so I know that you have really exposed and opened my eyes to a lot of different things here in regards to your business and things like that. But what is what are some maybe stigmas? What are some misconceptions maybe about your business that you would like to debunk today?
Sure. When it comes to chiropractic, there's probably a whole bunch. Some of the, I guess, quick ones, that people hear, or you see the questions all the time, are chiropractors real doctors and that sort of thing? And yes, chiropractors are doctors of chiropractic. They're not medical doctors. It's something separate. But the schooling that chiropractors get really is very comparable to what an MD gets. We don't get all the pharmacology and things like that because we're not, prescribing drugs and, medications, things of that sort. But all the health information, the basic sciences, the anatomy, physiology, those sorts of things, how to read x-rays, how to, do an exam, all those things are very comparable between what an MD does and a chiropractor does. So yes, chiropractors are real doctors, and in some areas we probably know more than most regular medical doctors when it comes to things more like nutrition. And it's not saying anything bad about medical doctors, but it's just not a big part of their curriculum. So nutrition, overall health and well-being type of things. So that's a big one there.
Nice. So. Yeah. No, I think that's huge, right? And it's kind of one of those things that, again, I knew about chiropractic. I just didn't know how important it is, and it's kind of like life insurance. People know about it, but they don't know how important maybe it really is. So, Mike Smith, thank you so much for tuning in live. Glad to have you here. Josh Deck headed to an inspection. Thank you so much for stopping by, man. Hope everything goes well with you. And Jacob Aldrich, hashtag live with my mother, who's actually a patient at Life Symmetry Chiropractic. Absolutely. Appreciate you guys being here for sure. And Ricky, man, I haven't seen you in a long time. It's good to have you tune in as well. So thank you so much for stopping by. Yeah, no, that's great stuff. Now, this is something that, I actually had to go and look it up, but to get an explanation directly from you, and kind of where did this premise come from? What is motivating this? And kind of maybe go a little bit further and talk about, the encompassing piece, how your kids are included in this journey as well. This is something that I think is super important, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, for our families. But can you explain what this $1 million modus, or the quest to become the $1 million modus is? I think this is like so interesting and something that is definitely worthy of highlighting.
Okay. Well, this is kind of one of my, I guess, side project ideas things. It is, it's one of my other pages called The Quest for the Millionaire Modus. And so the name kind of behind it, modus, perhaps something that it's, I believe it's Latin, if I remember correctly, but you might be more familiar with modus operandi, or MO. Basically, modus means how something is done. I just liked how it sounded. But basically, I don't know. A few years back, I really became interested in kind of what makes people successful. What is kind of, what is it, that I don't think it's something people are just born with, right? And a lot of the books and stuff I've read, that's kind of thing is there are habits, there are things that people do that allow them to be successful. And so that's kind of what the quest for the millionaire modus is as I'm learning, looking at books and things like that, where I'm learning kind of the success, habits, the things that people do, that's kind of a place for me to share thoughts, ideas, things that I'm learning, because I know for myself, I didn't know about these things, and if I had known earlier, maybe I could be farther along. I don't know if that makes sense. And so that's also kind of part of why on Saturdays I do a video. So I've been doing basically daily live video on that page for over a year now. Like I said, just things I've been learning. But on Saturdays, I usually I've started doing a video with my boys. And so it's called Lesson with the Boys on the Saturday. And the thought there was, again, usually what it is just having them look at kind of their previous week, maybe a couple weeks back, and say, what is something that happened and what can I learn from it, basically? And, I want them to, they enjoy it. I'm not just forcing them. They actually enjoy it. But I want them to be able to kind of have that mindset of start looking at life and things, and not just, moaning, groaning that something happened, but what can I learn from this? How could I learn from this and either do something better in the future, or what's the underlying lesson that will help me? And so that's kind of that part of things as well. So.
Well, I love that, right? Because I think one of the things that I've learned is, most of the time, in order to be successful, it has to be part of your everyday, right? So the support, I mean, you have to include your family. You've got to, and I think it's hard to maybe get to what they call that transmutation phase, right? Where you kind of like everything is in alignment, the way that you think, the way that you approach things, the way that you maybe even feel about certain things, all of that kind of changes, and evolves, but it's hard to maybe do that if there are certain pieces that maybe hold you back, so to speak,
Right.
and things like that. So I love the fact that you include your family on this journey. There was one recently, a video that I saw that really kind of stood out to me and basically talks about faith and how does, is faith, a part of, can it be a part of your daily journey? And I really love that you had to say that, this is something that we make a lot of decisions off of. This is something that we kind of base our lives off of. So why shouldn't it be part of our daily journey? So that was something that I think that maybe people struggle with,
Right.
and so it was a video that I basically was able to kind of, take a look and put myself in that situation. So I love the things that that you're doing with these videos, and that it encompasses so many different things, to kind of, like I said, help with that transmutation phase. And for those of you who don't know what that transmutation phase is, that's just basically your mindset, your body, your spirit. It just kind of everything kind of changes and evolves toward whatever your goals are, whatever that alignment is. And oftentimes for entrepreneurs, there's this one phase of taking that leap of faith to basically then going to what's the next phase. I launched a business. Now can I hire an employee? Now can I take this? My friend Aaron and I were talking last night, and you know millionaires, they always say that first million is so difficult, and then the second one is even harder. But then by the time they get to 5 or 10 million, they always say nothing was harder than that first 2 to 3 million. So it's kind of that same concept with everything. And I'm sure Dr. Schuneman could probably go on about that with all the different books that he's read, things like that. So,
well, I do want to say one more thing about that idea of faith. And the
yes.
thing is that whether you realize it or not, everything that you do really is based on faith of some sort, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's kind of a religious basis of faith, but so many things you don't actually experience or know from firsthand experience, right? You trust that somebody else did the research and that research is true. But when it comes down to it, it really is just you have faith that they did things correctly. Even things that you hear in the news and this and that. Again, unless you were firsthand experience, you don't know, and so you're going on faith that those things are true. So it happens. It's around us all the time, whether we choose to look at it as faith or not. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's further emphasizes why it's so important and why people want to trust the people that they work with. We're always constantly rewriting the stories that people tell us and rewriting the conversations, and this is maybe a little bit unplanned, but maybe, and again, you can tell me if you know maybe about this, but like if I were to say, hey, I went and saw the new It movie, right? And then somebody might turn around and you might say, hey, I heard it was pretty scary. What do you think? And then I might go and tell somebody, the next person, say, hey, I just saw the new It movie. It was pretty scary,
Yeah.
right? And then the third time, that person might respond like, oh yeah, I heard it was pretty scary, even though they never saw it or they don't know nothing about it. And then they'll go and tell somebody like, yeah, my friend said the new It movie was pretty scary. I think I want to go check it out. And then it just constantly, like, this one story or this one line of I went and saw the new It movie basically continues to evolve based off of whoever is retelling the story. And it's kind of the same thing. You might read a review online and they're like, oh, this is one of the scariest movies up to date. And then you go and watch it, and until you've experienced that for yourself, you're like, yeah, it wasn't that scary. You know what I mean? And then up until somebody actually challenges the status quo, and they're like, everyone's like, oh, it's so scary, blah, blah, blah. And someone's like, no, it really wasn't that scary. then somebody else might be like, yeah, I heard it wasn't that scary. You know what I mean? Then it kind of like, it's so interesting the way that the conversation can change. But it takes somebody to actually experience it, to actually stand up for it. And again, by that point, maybe it's often too late. So just some things to consider in your conversation.
Some interesting stuff kind of along those lines too is there's a concept called priming. And, that kind of goes into it too. If you hear that it's really scary, and you go into it, you're probably expecting it to be really scary. And you might even react in that way, expecting it to be scary. You're heightened. And so elements in the movie that happen would, change how you perceive it, basically. There was a really interesting study, just how subtle some of those things could be. I don't remember all the exact details, but I heard this from Tony Robbins. He was talking about how the researchers, were taking their study subjects down to the lab or whatever and going in the elevator. And actually that was part of the study. And the researcher either had a warm cup of coffee or iced coffee, basically. And they were writing on their clipboard and had the participant, hold their cup of coffee for, like 30 seconds or something like that. And whether it was iced or cold affected the rest of the study that they did, with asking them questions about, I forget, like a story or something, and how they perceived if the people were more cold or warm in the way that they were. So it's really pretty fascinating.
Wow. Yeah, that is crazy. I'd love to have to go and dig the stats in regards to some of that. So if anybody else is familiar with some of these things, definitely let us know. Give us some links, post them up. But yeah, I mean, obviously you can see kind of some of the things that that we're into. Well, since we're talking about kind of the mindset and the modus and things like that, what changes have you noticed maybe in yourself or maybe in your kids since you're involved with them, and in your family, since kind of starting to change this mindset and adapting this new mindset in terms of, where you want to be and what you want to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. And, kind of sounds maybe cliche, but to be honest, everything changes when you change the way, because when you change your mindset, basically you change the way that you look at the world. A question, I don't know if it's necessarily so conscious anymore, but that I kind of use or try to get myself to ask all the time is, what else could this mean? Because so often we see something from our own perspective and we automatically interpret what that means. Maybe somebody made an offhanded comment. They probably didn't mean anything by it itself, right?
Right.
Maybe they were having a bad day, but we took it as an attack on us, or, how could they say something so mean or whatever? And taking that minute to stop and just kind of ask, okay, wait a minute, what else could this mean? And then that opens up new possibilities instead of being stuck to this one, reaction that, we initially have to that. And so because of that, to be honest, I'm a lot happier overall by not just assuming, kind of the worst, but when I find myself kind of getting into a mindset of, oh, how could they do this, that, or that, stopping and trying to say, okay, what else could this mean? What kind of situation could they have been in that, maybe they didn't even mean it. Maybe they weren't thinking and it came out wrong or whatever. And when I do that, it makes it a whole lot easier to not just get upset and, bent out of shape and angry at someone for something that they probably didn't even mean.
Sure. Yeah. I think right now, maybe with social media and stuff like that, it's really difficult, for a lot of people. I mean, it's been hard, for so many different sides. And I mean, before that, it wasn't maybe any better with all the political stuff, right? So I think having maybe some of that discernment, especially as a business owner, oftentimes maybe you have to be a little bit more leery of what you might say, in terms of, again, it's not so much that you are silencing yourself. It's just that we have to be really delicate about how we approach things, because there is always that opportunity or maybe that ability that the wrong thing could completely ruin everything that you've built.
Right.
And even more so nowadays, I think, than in years past because of the digital age that we live in. So
once it's out there, right?
exactly. So
Lots of opportunities to take it out of context, and
yeah,
again.
absolutely. So again, maybe when it comes to business and stuff like that, it's not necessarily a bad thing to maybe sit back a little bit. But again, I mean, that kind of all depends on you. I mean, there may be a certain time when you feel like you have to be on the front lines, and that's okay too. Nobody tells you how to run your business better than you. So,
Right.
so this is, I think, kind of been leading up to this really from all the questions, but what books, what podcasts are you actively reading? Which ones would you recommend for maybe, a couple of different things? Maybe people who are new to business, maybe people who are just looking, for maybe more fulfillment, maybe out of what they're doing, I know you have a lot of different things that you're willing to try. And so, what are some of those things for fulfillment that you might recommend to somebody else?
As far as going back to like books, probably one of the books that first kind of started me on this whole journey was Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. That's kind of when I first realized kind of the idea of being able to, not react to everything, right? Yeah, being able to take a moment to stop and actually think instead of just that gut, reflex reacting to somebody, saying something back or whatever. And that was one of the biggest ones I think that kind of first started me on the whole kind of journey with mindset and things like that. And that really kind of opened the door for me. So that's one that I personally love. I've read it a few times now, and that's one that I would recommend to pretty much anybody, just in general life, so the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is one. Another kind of classic that I didn't read until recently. Actually, it's kind of funny. I kind of put it off because the title was I thought was kind of off-putting. Was the what is it? How to win friends and influence people. Previously I used to think that was sounded like such a manipulative title to me, but when I actually read it, it was like, no, it's not anything about manipulating or anything of that sort. It actually is just being a kind, good person. And if you do those things, right, that's how you're going to influence people by, offering value, doing things to help people, and seeing it from their point of view, all those sorts of things. So that is another big one.
I like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say I really like that. And I think there's a sense of self. You know what I mean? When you go through that you realize that maybe you're capable of doing so much more, being in a position to maybe help more, things like that. Couple of comments here. Another great book that just commenting on yours, and then 7 Habits is such a good book. So yeah, I mean, you're definitely resonating with people in the chat right now with some of the stuff that you're firing off. So I mean, glad to hear that there's other people in there who have read these books as well.
Yeah. As far as podcasts, I don't listen to a ton of podcasts. There's one that I listen to. It's the Marketing Secrets podcast by Russell Brunson. I usually catch up on that on Saturday mornings when I'm doing my workout. I'll listen to a few different episodes from the previous week. But for marketing and things like that, Russell Brunson was kind of one of the ones that first opened my eyes to see kind of what marketing really can be. Somebody else that I listen to quite a bit when I get the chance, not as often as Russell, is Dean Graziosi. I love Dean Graziosi as well. Just the positive, upbeat point of view of things. So
sure,
those are a couple that I really enjoy.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you brought up some of these books here, and I want to kind of just maybe go through a list of some of the stuff that I've kind of taken note of. Some of these I'm sure came from the book, but feel free to chime in on any of these yourself too.
Okay.
Again, no particular order, and again, these are just kind of some of the things that habits of positive people. Again, you can kind of take that at face value and things like that. And again, I think right now with everything that's going on, some of these again could be misinterpreted. So I trying to just kind of preface that again, these are generalities. These are not basically saying absolutes or anything by any means. Um, so basically, the attitude is that life happens, good, bad, or indifferent. So people don't typically, positive people or habits of people. They're not playing a victim and they're not blaming others. Um, they take the good, leave the bad, and leave the past in the past. They don't have necessarily good or bad days. They just make good days. So no matter what happens, their outcome and their outlook is that it's going to be a good day. Even if they're going through some stuff, they can turn it around.
Absolutely. That's one I really love too. And I've heard several people, Dean Graziosi is one too, but the idea of no matter where you are, there's always something to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
and when you change from, stacking all the negative things that are happening to stopping and saying, okay, what is there? Even if the world feels like it's falling apart, I still have my life, I still can breathe, I can still feel, whatever it may be, even at something so small. Or yeah, I'm grateful because I know it could probably even be worse, even if it comes down to that, there's always something that you could be grateful for. And that just kind of changes again, that mindset of where you are and what you choose to focus on, which really does kind of, your focus will determine kind of what kind of day, or is it a good day or is it a bad day? Are you focusing on all the bad things that happen that day or all the good things? And that really kind of makes it what it is.
Yeah, and I think that's a good check-in point too, right? Because I remember a point in my life where I suffered from heavy depression, and the people that I knew that had those positive outlooks, those people who were basically like, oh, it's just another day, but we can make it better, or there's plenty of time to turn it around, And for me, where I was at, those people were too happy, right?
Right.
And that's kind of where I knew that, what, maybe I'm not in a good spot. And so, some of these things that you're hearing, maybe if you're looking at them and you're kind of like, that's stupid, who can turn around a bad day and make it into a good day? Who doesn't have bad, you know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe this an opportunity to kind of check in to see where you're at. Maybe there is something deeper. Maybe some things to take a look at. And again, by no means is this something that you can just quickly turn on and off like a light switch. This is hard
Right.
work.
No, yeah, definitely hard work. But like anything else, though, it becomes easier the more you
Yes,
practice it.
definitely. It becomes habitual. All those sayings, fake it till you make it. I mean, regardless if you like that saying or not, the point is that you have to try some of these things in order to eventually let something stick.
So
So
I heard a better version of that I like that I use now. It's faith it until you make it.
there you go. I like that better. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that makes that's better for by any means. So faith it till you make it. I like that. So just a couple more here. Discernment for quitting versus letting things go. I think this was huge for me. All of our lives, we're taught not to quit. You have to finish strong. You have to pursue. But ultimately, I think that there is a huge discernment when you learn that maybe something truly is not for you. You've given it your all. You've tried your best. You've maybe gotten to that point. Business owners, I think this is really difficult because they sometimes get into it, and I think most of us get into the idea that we're in a marriage with our business and that we're going to be with it through better or worse.
Right.
And for those of us that maybe go through the worst, sometimes it's hard for us to let that go. But the truth is that the sooner that you can learn to discern that quitting doesn't mean that or letting something go doesn't mean that you're quitting. If you've tried everything, or just maybe realizing that what, for my mental health, for my family, whatever those situations, it may be better to just let that go.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, that is such a hard thing to do, though, right? Because
Absolutely.
exactly, so ingrained to not give up. And to be honest, there's a huge part of not giving up when things get hard to get to that next level where things are. But I know I've thought about this many different times when things are tough, and I think the most important part or in making that decision is really knowing kind of what, I guess, your priorities or your purpose is, and looking at it that way. And when you finally decide and see, is what I'm doing going to lead me to, you know, fulfilling these priorities, these, you know, my passion, whatever it is you want to call it, my purpose, you know, and if at first you thought it may have, but then it changes, that's, I think, when you need to say, okay, let's let it go to focus on things that are actually going to get me to my, you know, highest priorities, my highest values, whatever kind of words that you have. But one of the problems is, you know, oftentimes we go around without really thinking about what are our highest values, what are our big priorities. And so then it's so easy to get caught up in something else that's leading us away because we haven't taken the time to think about it
And they
and figure it
change. Priorities change,
out. Well, they do.
and so, can you be passionate about something that you started 5 years ago that maybe your whole, maybe your goals are aligned completely different, and it's weird, right? Because we talk about all the time how for business owners, it's persistence and consistency that allows a lot of people to break through and push through. But again, on the other side, is this solely slowly maybe killing you inside, or taking you away from whatever your passions, goals, and all those self-fulfillment, all those different things are. So this one is really tough, and I think that, but I love the fact that it's out there, because that's such a difficult concept. And again, I think it's kind of more of one of those where it's like, the people who have basically been able to reflect on this, the ones that basically can look back and say, yeah, I had this one business, and, I was in it for 30 years and I ended up letting it go. And it was the best decision I ever had. It's kind of one of those weird things that you're like, that's crazy, So, but yeah, I just love the fact that, some people had the audacity to bring that up here, because a lot of us at first were like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. Or some of us are like, I can kind of see it. And some of us are just like, I wouldn't go there. So, hard work, knowledge, attitude, being able to discern truth for self, being able to renovate yourself. I think that's tough too, right? Because we all carry baggage. We all have things, that basically kind of weigh us down, whether it's doubt. We're always comparing our insides to other people's outsides.
Right.
But to know that you can kind of reinvent who you are, that your past maybe plays a role into who you are today, but that's not your narrative. That's not how your story ends, and so being able to kind of recreate yourself in a whole different way. Maybe it's the complete opposite, but that is, being able to learn that you can do that is huge. Inspiring, being inspired, belief and understanding that equality, that you can put yourself back on even playing grounds, even despite all those things. So is there anything in there that you would like to add, anything that you would agree or disagree with?
Most of that, I would say, yeah, I would agree. There wasn't anything really that stuck out as not agreeing with. One of the interesting things, actually, I was just thinking about the other day, was kind of this, reinventing yourself and things of that sort. And I think how often we feel like how we can't do that, right? I'm not being consistent anymore. And it's like, no, that's not it at all. You've decided you want to be something else. And that's kind of one of a thought that I come back to again and again, is kind of this idea of, you get to decide who you want to be. And if where you are isn't who you really want to be, you can change that. You're free to change it. You're the one who gets to choose, not somebody else telling you what you should be, but you get to choose for yourself. And if you're not where you are or where you want to be, who you want to be, even if you've been that way for a long time, you can say, no, I'm changing. This is who I want to be. This is who I'm going to be. And I know I'm not going to be perfect at it, right? Habits die hard, right? It takes a long time to change some of those things, but you get to choose who you want to be. I think maybe there's some kind of self-discovery, discovering who you are, but I think a large part of it really is, who you want to be is who you are. I think some people kind of go around lost in a sense because they're trying to discover who they are, and think they're going to find it somewhere out there. But really, it's who do you want to be? And you can start doing that. And again, you'll probably change along the way, course corrections, other things will become more important. But, you don't have to be embarrassed that you were something else before. And now you've decided to change. That is so important, and I think actually shows more strength than trying to hide what you were before, and being ashamed of what you were before, but saying, no, this is who I was and this is who I want to be, and I'm changing, and I'm not proud of what I did or whatever if it was something that you're not, but you don't have to necessarily hide it or whatever.
Yeah, I think those are two different growth phases, right? Finding a sense of belonging and then finding a sense of who you are, right? And sometimes they can conflict at different times of your life, So, no, I think that's very valid. And I'm very thankful that you've brought that up, because so many of us walk around maybe in kind of aimlessness or maybe just kind of some confusion, maybe wanting a sense of purpose or belonging. And, maybe you've tried different things. Maybe you forgot along the ways, maybe a part of who you are because, life has burned you and things like that. But, what I've learned, coming from depression to business owner, from, surviving suicide to, talking to people and inspiring them to, fire their boss,
Right.
when you look at the complete 180, what I basically found is that I can be myself and that I will find the people who gravitate towards that, and that's enough. Oftentimes we get compared in that rat race and we just think that, we have to find and match everyone and that we have to get all these big numbers to kind of compare with everyone else. But at the end of the day, you just find your people and you'll be content. So,
yeah.
Okay. Coming up here on close on time. So this is actually great timing here. What is a fun fact or some fun facts that people don't know about Dr. Schuneman?
Yeah. So, well, actually, I do have on my practice website about me, I listed out kind of 10 different things, but probably the one thing that surprises people the most when they learn about it is I was actually a skater in high school. So I skateboarded, and most people look at me and go, "No way! There's no way you were a skater." Yeah. No, I actually enjoyed skateboarding. Yes, quite a bit. So I broke my foot in high school skateboarding. Yep. Dropping in on a half pipe and fell on my foot, and so most people are kind of surprised by that. So
Yeah, no, I'm definitely kind of shaken by that a little bit. What are maybe some of your best or some of your favorite tricks that you used to do?
see, I never got very good, I would say. Yeah, probably one of my best tricks was probably like a heel flip. I couldn't do a kick flip very well. I could sometimes land a heel flip, but that was probably one of the best. And I could do like a little bit of like board slide, things like that. But
Okay.
yeah, I never got that good, but I enjoyed it. It was
Okay. So I was like, we're not going to see you out there with Tony Hawk or any.
no, definitely not going to be pulling any 900s or anything like that.
Okay. Oh, that's still really cool to know that. I mean, like you said, that's maybe not something that we would have seen. Rob says, I didn't know Dr. Schuneman used to skateboard with the flex. So yeah, no, that's really cool though to know. Okay, so and this is kind of our staple question here, really on what the channel has been. So, I mean, if you didn't have any limitations, right? If you didn't have this millionaire modus to chase after, you know, What do you think that ideal life for Dr. Schuneman, or maybe just Michael Schuneman, would look like at this point?
Right. I have kind of thought about this quite a bit, but and really that's kind of what I guess I want to get to. A place where I don't have to, worry about money or things like that, where it feels like, I'm working because I have to. I'm pretty sure, like I said, I'm not there yet, but I'm pretty sure when I'm there, I'm still going to want to do what I'm doing, either both in the chiropractic and then also, just learning and trying to teach people along the way, helping other people.
Mm.
But, that's, I don't know. Yeah. Just wanting to be to a place where you didn't have to worry about all those things. And I couldn't, I realized for myself, I couldn't just sit and relax and not do anything. I'd have to still be out there doing something,
Right.
teaching people, that's doing things along those lines, helping people through chiropractic, with their health, with the mindset stuff that I'm learning, which really is such a huge part of things. So, granted, like to have a nice place to be able to enjoy though and rest with and, spend time with family as well. But, even there, I don't think I could just spend all my time with my family and not go out and help other people. So,
Sure. Yeah, no, and I think that Robbie, again, just kind of hit it on the head. He says you can tell that Dr. Schuneman has a passion for helping people. And I would agree 1,000%, Rob. I'm privy to be able uh, to see and get to talk with Dr. Schuneman maybe a lot more than others because we are in the same networking group. And I'm thankful for so many people in that group. But to be able to know that somebody who has similar interests in terms of kind of being a forward thinker, somebody who's looking, to kind of change maybe the status quo, so to speak. So I appreciate the fact that you're on here to kind of really validate, for maybe people who aren't privy to get to know Dr. Schuneman outside of maybe this interview. But again, we definitely encourage you guys to reach out to kind of see what he's about. And then not only that, he can kind of teach you and help you, in terms of maybe where your pains may be, and to kind of help alleviate. Just even some of the videos that I've watched, and I was telling them today, was sitting at a computer often, for long periods of time. So he had a video that kind of showcased some of these stretches. One was just kind of to like arch back and kind of have the shoulder blades kind of arch back. And then a lot of times you see people kind of like doing these things, and one of the videos he says was to basically just bring your neck back straight, not lift it up, but just kind of bring it back. And those two things, those two stretches have helped me tremendously. So, it's just those little things that you don't know that could be changing, so again, hashtag life definitely, my recommendation would be to pair up and get to know Dr. Schuneman. And honestly, I mean, just the conversations, based off of today, I mean, we could talk probably for
oh,
hours.
I'm sure we probably could.
And so, but um, again, I'm just so thankful for your willingness to kind of come in and showcase, a little bit of what you do, but really just kind of, I don't think there's a huge opportunity oftentimes for small and local business owners to be able to maybe get into a platform where they can really deep dive in such a short amount of time just because we're so busy. And so I
Right.
appreciate you making the time to be able to come on here. And I know that you take a really great job of my friends, my family, my clients. I see my wife is on here, hashtag live, and she says, I need to see you, doctor. So, yeah, I was talking just before that I need to schedule some appointments as well. So,
Right.
but yeah, is there anything maybe in closing that you would like to go ahead and mention or say or anything like that? Anybody that, that you want to maybe give a shout out to?
Well, first off, I just want to say thank you to you, Patrick. You putting this all together. I really appreciate it, and yeah, I'm grateful to be able to know you and get to work with you on so many different in different ways, and have you as a friend, and just seeing your example to be such a giver and helping so many different people, it inspires me. So I appreciate you for putting this together and having me on. I really do appreciate it. So
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate that as well. And I'm so glad for the connection, for the friendship, and again, it goes both ways for sure. I'm watching the things that you're doing with your family right happen right in front of our eyes, and it's great to be along with you on this journey and everything. um Guys, for those of you who have been watching live, tuned in, even if it's you're catching the end or you're there from the beginning, we're so thankful for you being in here. Next week we have two. Actually, we're going to have three speakers next week. So next Wednesday we will have April. She is the co-owner of KC Motors. Just incredible lady. So we're gonna get a chance to go live with her next Wednesday. And then next Thursday, we actually have a double header. So we have Steph Browning from SB Staging. If you're a realtor, you know her. If you're anywhere near the real estate industry. And then we also have Rebecca Moore, co-owner of Calm Enterprises, just an amazing business and what they're doing in terms of helping people with respite care and disabilities, things like that. So, guys, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Stories Worth Telling. I wanted to say thank you again to Dr. Schuneman for being here. And again, guys, hashtag life to connect with Dr. Schuneman. And we'll definitely catch you next time. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.